So, Mr. Tom's here?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you a really quick question. Has me and Roboco ever did something to you and your family?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I... Wait, you said yes?
Yes.
What did it do?
It barged into my house, kicked my dog out of the window, and stabbed my mom 17 times in the neck before running away with my limited edition Star Wars Funko Pop collection.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It really doesn't.
Now I get why you hate me and Roboco so much.
Yeah, I still can't forgive it. By the way,
Yeah?
why are we covering my face and voice if we're still making my name, public?
Yeah, that's just so people don't realize we have the same face and voice. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Crash, and the most hated manga in all of the internet is probably not me and Roboco. The internet is filled with hate towards pretty much everything, but it is undeniable that this little gag manga from Weekly Shounen Jump is getting its fair share of it in social media. Today I want to look at why that is, and why I think a lot of it is misguided and undeserved. Though I should start by saying that this isn't me saying that you can't dislike me and Roboco. Tastes are subjective, and especially when it comes to comedy, what can make one person laugh can make another one cringe. You know, except the intro for this video, which made everyone cringe, and I am not sorry for it. This is also not me trying to force people to read me and Roboco. If you think it's not your thing, then it probably isn't, so it's fair to want to dedicate your time towards manga that you think you will enjoy. But if you're doing that, just don't spout informed nonsense about it. But the hate towards me and Roboco goes far beyond people thinking it's unfunny or just not being interested in it, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. For those that are unaware, Me and Roboco is a gag manga from Weekly Shounen Jump by mangaka Shuhei Miyazaki, released in June of last year. Back when the first chapter of the manga was released, most people reacted the same way they react to pretty much every gag manga, with a bunch of axe emojis. Nobody really cared about Roboco at the time, and I suspect that was a lot to do with the fact that most people just expected this to be a very mediocre series that would last 20 chapters, and then it would be kicked out of the magazine. I don't really know if most people even read anything past the very first chapter. With very low expectations, it wasn't hard for Roboco to surpass them. And it's been more than a year, and while people still wait for Roboco to be gone, it's getting more and more clear that it's here to stay, even if there's a lot of people who seemingly dislike the series. Now, this could easily be the case of it: if you don't like it, don't read it, but people don't really hate Roboco for not being good. No. People hate Roboco for existing. So why? Well, I don't think there's a single one reason, even if the criticism is always the same. I think the first layer is the same reason why people dismiss titles like Mitama Security and High School Family. Most, if not all, Western Shonen Jump fans got into Jump via Battle Shonen. This was the case with me as well. People learn about Shonen Jump from One Piece, or Naruto, or Dragon Ball, or Demon Slayer, or Jujutsu Kaisen. They don't really learn it via Dr. Slump, or Gravity Boys, or Stop It Barikun. At least, most don't. There's a bias at play here. Most Western fans want to read the next big battle shonen. It's why titles like Redwood and Mashle got instant praise. It's also why Michi no Sakura started getting more recognition once they started doing more battles. This is also why even titles like Zipman and Guardian of the Witch get more attention, even if they are more notorious for being bad. Because most readers will still pick up a Zipman over a me and Roboco. Most people that I throw this argument at return with another one: Mashle. Mashle is a gag manga that got attention right away, and most people liked it. And yes, also no. Even ignoring the biggest factors that made people check Mashle was how everyone is compared to One Punch Man and Harry Potter. While Mashle is indeed a gag manga, it's also a battle shonen. A lot of people read it for that mix, not for the gags. If we compare it to the arguably biggest gag manga in Jump, not only in the West but overall, Gintama, the same can be said. It's a gag manga, and doubly so, but one of the most common arguments I see thrown, even from the fans, is that the series gets better once it starts to be more battle shonen focused. Reborn is another case, Dragon Ball another. All manga that started as gag, or in the case of Dragon Ball a mix, that got praise once they moved past that and more into action-based stories. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that there aren't comedy manga or anime that are successful in the West, that's not true, but it seems that when it comes to Weekly Shounen Jump, people expect every manga to be action-based, with very few exceptions. People have been complaining of gag manga in the magazine since 2019, and I think they fail to realize that Weekly Shounen Jump's second biggest genre in the magazine was always gag. Even before Okuro no Ken caused a shift in the magazine to what we know it to be today, it still was very much a gag-filled magazine, with some of its early successes being Kinnikuman, Dr. Slump, Ibarikun, and Renshigakuen, all of them being gag manga. But okay, these are all arguments as to why people are biased against gag manga in general. Surely if that was the only thing, Roboco would be as hated as High School Family and pretty much every other gag manga in the magazine, right? Well, yes, and I think it very much was until a certain event. Phantoms Here was a gag manga that was released just a couple months after Roboco, and it got a lot of praise right from the get-go, and honestly, I can see why. Kento Matsura had shown his art skills back in the cancelled Tokyo Shinobi Squad, but it really shone during Phantoms Here's run, with most chapters including a gorgeous, horrific, and mesmerizing creature. The battle elements were interesting, and while not necessarily new, most new readers probably skipped over 2005's Miyo and Roji, so it was still very much a fresh manga. People in the West loved it, but in a situation that will no doubt seem familiar to Redwood fans, the manga kept tanking on the table of contents. And after 30 chapters or so, it found itself to be cancelled. Now, this isn't really the first time a manga that got good reception in the West got cancelled, but when Time Paradox Ghostwriter got the axe, I think we're all expecting it. After all, the reception of the manga was very controversial in Japan. With Phantoms Here, if the reception wasn't good, it wasn't as noticeable at least. It led to a lot of people wondering if something was up. Rumors of the mangaka being sick or some other external reasons started surfacing, but after everything was all said and done, the anger that people had over its cancellation was directed towards something else. After all, Jump is a popularity game. Only the best of the best, or at least the most popular of the most popular, remain. The ones that fail to grab an audience are forever doomed, but Phantoms Here did that. It grabbed an audience. But what about that weird manga about maids that should have lasted 20 chapters? Oh, it's almost at 40 now. And it's doing well on the table of contents? Why? It surely can be because it's good. This was when the editors of Roboco first started to appear. Of course, to a degree they are right, Jump is a popularities game, and if there's limited slots in the magazine, then the less viable manga are bound to be kicked out first. And if you go back, you'll notice that Phantoms Here was doing okay in sales, better than Roboco at least, but that is looking at it in a single dimension that really doesn't take into account something. People are angry that Roboco has the spot that Phantoms Here should have, and soon the spot that Red Hood should have, I predict, but they fail to realize something. It doesn't. They aren't competing for the same spot. If Jump only had the most popular manga according to raw sales, it will most likely only have battle shonens. Simply put, that's by far the most popular genre with the biggest number of fans. But Jump doesn't want that. It wants to have gag manga, it wants to have rom-coms, and it wants to have sports manga to bring potential fans of all genres into buying their stuff. Because here's the secret. People who like Phantoms Here are probably the same that like Jujutsu Kaisen or My Hero Academia or Black Clover or One Piece, and guess what? They aren't going anywhere because Phantoms Here is cancelled. Phantoms Here just wasn't big enough in its own genre. While on the other hand, Roboco is fighting for the gag comedy spot. And it's doing better than the others that are competing against it, with the exception of Mashal, but even then, that leaves enough space for Roboco to flourish, which it most definitely has. Japan loves gag manga, and that's another thing we should have in mind. The humor is very much made for the Japanese audience, and they have been enjoying Roboco. It got awards, it got mentions in TV shows, and it got blessings from mangaka frequently, which has certainly improved not only the status in the magazine, but the sales as well. Yes, the sales aren't really massive. The fourth volume sold 18,500 copies in the first 3 weeks, with Phantoms Here selling 25,000 at the same time, but we should also notice that a lot of people read gag manga in the magazine only, and it should be gathering enough votes from the popularity surveys to warrant its stay. Regardless, it's also doing better in sales than its immediate competition, High School Family and Mago-chan. So does this mean you have to shut up and enjoy Roboco? No, not necessarily. As I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to be interested in Roboco, either because they don't like gag manga in general or just because they don't like the particular style of comedy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yet I still think when it comes to people talking about the actual content of the series, there's still a big fallacy going around. Pretty much every argument against Roboco is, well, actually it's one and the same, that the humor is solely based on parodies. Now, this by itself is already a bit of a perplexing argument, as yes, this is a parody manga, its main stake is referencing and parodying Jump and its series. Roboco isn't the first or last parody to exist. Lots of comedy shows or movies are very much parodies, from the Scary Movie franchise, to Spaceballs, to Saturday Night Live, to Weird Al Yankovic, to Deadpool, and of course Gintama. Gintama isn't even the only manga to reference Jump in its titles, despite what people may lead you to believe. David Kuhn, Assassination Classroom, and even Toriyama's very own Dr. Slump all use meta humor and references. Hell, this isn't even the mangaka's first parody manga, as before Roboco he worked on Yakusoko no Neverland, a parody of The Promised Neverland that led him to work with the duo behind it, whom he still calls his mentors. And this is where I'll admit my bias. I love meta humor, I always have. That's why I love Deadpool. That's the big reason why I love Roboco. And I understand that Roboco does have a glaring difference with Deadpool and Gintama, as both of them don't hold their references as close to their plot as Roboco does, but is that a bad thing when it's literally a parody manga? Surely, its references and parodies having some bearing in the plot is a good thing, no? But I guess what irks people is that Roboco doesn't have any substance, plot, or humor past those references, right? And yes, that would annoy me too, if that was true. But there's more to Roboco than just parodies. Not necessarily story-wise, as it's very much episodic, and while things do carry from chapter to chapter, it's mostly story-free, as expected from this kind of manga. But it's when you look at what Roboco is doing, at the characters and its theme, that we begin to see how it uses the parodies to create its own identity. The story of Me and Roboco is, well, it's about a boy who asks his mom for what it made, and she orders the second one, and what appears at home is Roboco, something super different from all the other maids. But on a second level, it's about a group of kids who really like Weekly Shounen Jump, which is probably relatable to a lot of kids who really like Weekly Shounen Jump and buy it every week. For those that read all of Weekly Shounen Jump every single week, it's fun to reach Roboco and see these characters fanboying over it as we do. You can tell that each and every character are passionate about manga, be it Bondo's passion for To Love Ru or Roboco's passion for Jujutsu Kaisen. And it's clear that the mangaka Miyazaki isn't just name-dropping titles, and rather is passionate and inspired by them as well. He's like us, in love with manga and in love with Jump. And Roboco uses its parodies and references to build upon that. Sometimes, yes, it's just a simple nod to the series. Others, it's a complete reconstruction of scenes in a ridiculous setting, and others, it's a love letter to it. But more so than that, there's a lot more to the chapters than just references. There's characters. And to be fair, the basis for these characters are a subversion of a very popular and established manga and anime that isn't even from Weekly Shounen Jump. It's pretty obvious from the story, but the very first volume also gives it away. Doraemon. Bondo is clearly inspired by Nobita. From his reactions to behavior this is clear, but certainly the inspiration and subversion is clearer in his friends. Nobita had these two friends, Suneo and Jian. And honestly, there was always a thing that bugged me about the relationship. You see, Nobita would hang with them all the time, but all they did with very few exceptions was just to bully him pretty much over anything. So it was hilarious to me for the first time I read Roboco to see Gachi Gorilla and Kaneo Mutsuo, the two characters that are clearly inspired by them, reveal that they aren't bullies at all, they just seem like it. But turns out that they are pretty good friends, and so that explains why Bondo would actually want to hang out with them. And I can hear you say, haha, see, Roboco's merit is clearly just adjacent to other series. But the fact is, this is just a foundation, the initial punchline. Gorilla and Mutsuo are one of the best parts of the series because their characters evolve from that initial premise. It's fun to see them be the nicest people around, to work hard to help their friends, to see Mutsuo trying to balance 73 different lessons at the same time to afford hanging out with Bondo for 5 minutes. It's fun to see Gorilla doing everything for his family, and it's fun to see Madoka's cuteness contrasting with her gambling problems. And it's fun to see Roboco. The world of Me and Roboco is populated with a bunch of well-minded and nice kids who love manga and their friends. They are the nicest kids you could ever meet, and they clearly have never seen Twitter. But then there's Roboco, who canonically has a Twitter account. And she is just kind of the opposite. She isn't a bad person at all, but she is unrefined, she's egotistical and narcissistic, and she is childish. Much more so than the elementary student cast that fills her circle of friends. Yet, mostly because of her childlike behavior, it's kind of adorable to see her act around. She isn't bad, just misguided and powerful. Way too powerful. For people who don't like or care about Roboco, a lot of jokes will seem nonsensical and ridiculous. Why is she mentioning knees? Why is her whole body a knee? Seriously, what's with the knees, you ask? But it is futile. The truth is, the knee is the answer to those questions. The knee is everything. The knee controls you. You can't escape the knee. To say that the parodies are all that Roboco has to offer is to miss what's the actual point of Roboco. What is the strongest point of Roboco? Yes, the parodies are the selling point of this parody manga, yes, it's how you'll find it most likely, and it might be why you want to check it out. The parodies are most definitely Roboco's brand, but they aren't Roboco's heart. The art of Me and Roboco, what makes Me and Roboco good, what makes people enjoy the manga, is not just references, and the parodies and the love for Jump. It's the characters. They are fun and funny, and honestly, that is all. I'm not going to pretend that Me and Roboco is the best manga in the world, or that it has super deep characters with amazing character arcs, or that its themes are just mind-blowing, because it's not that kind of manga, and people shouldn't expect it to be rated for not being. There's a role and place for it. It's perfect for when you're reading all of Weekly Shounen Jump to take a break and rest from the action and seriousness of other manga, to just lay back and laugh just for a little bit, and I think it does that perfectly. So I don't think Me and Roboco deserves all the it gets in the community, especially when it releases new volume covers. I mean, surely aiding on a manga for its volume covers is something that should be considered weird, unless it has some super cursed or botched design, and I guess some people may consider the volumes of Roboco cursed, but all it does is pay homage to great series and great covers. If Roboco does a cover of a manga you like, this is the author saying that he loves that manga, that he enjoys it so much that he wanted to attribute to it in its own series. Why then are people just en masse hating on it? I seriously cannot understand that behavior. To me, it just screams of people trying their best to find things to be mad about because I guess they hate happiness, so they need to go out of their way to force themselves to be miserable. I just don't get it. Why would you hate that someone likes the same things that you do? And just to reiterate, I don't care if you read Roboco and you didn't like it, that's your opinion, I have mine, and mine certainly isn't more or less valuable than yours. And it's okay if you think the series doesn't look appealing or you just don't want to try it out. But there's just so much unneeded and unwarranted hate towards this series from people who don't want to even check it out, who don't want to give it a chance. They don't even want to just simply ignore it. And that kind of behavior is, well, it's dumb and it should stop. Just like this video will stop right now. There's probably 2 videos on screen that you can click if you want to check out more of my stuff. I often talk about manga and I often talk about Jump, so if you like that, give the channel a check and consider a like and a subscribe and those things. And if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.